This is the story of a journey to search for the beauty of a people and their relationship with God. Is there historical evidence of the Creator God in Japanese culture? Did God leave his fingerprint within the culture and history of Japan? Have Western Christian culture and traditional missionary values overlooked the beauty and grace of traditional Japanese culture? This is a journey so unorthodox, it defies religious traditions to search for the truth wherever it may be found. This is a journey of beauty, history, and culture. But most of all, it's a story of love for the Japanese people and the culture that they hold so dear. This journey is the fulfillment of many years of research and is a search to uncover evidence of the Creator God in Japanese history and to look deeper to find how God has revealed himself within Japanese culture. To gather this evidence, a team from the United States and Japan traveled to historic sites, including museums, shrines, and temples, and interviewed a number of experts and authorities. Daniel Kikawa is an author who has traveled around the world teaching people how to build biblical cross-cultural relationships. He's researched this subject for over 18 years.
The Bible says that all people had a knowledge of the Creator. If this is true, then we should find a knowledge of the Creator God within the history and culture of Japan.
Today, Japan is a modern industrial nation. Known for its innovative technology and busy lifestyle, the culture of Japan has taken on a more global look and feel. To find more traditional culture, our research begins at the first organized settlements in Japan. The earliest settled community discovered so far is at Aomori, on the northern coast of Honshu. At this former settlement of an estimated 500 people, our team looked for the first organized efforts to seek God. One of the most intriguing aspects at Aomori are the high towers. These towers were built with huge logs and placed to exact specifications. Scholars are divided about whether high towers were for worship or if they were used as watchtowers. The majority seem to believe that they were places of worship. Although there is some evidence of worship at Aomori, there are no definitive answers. Over time, Japanese settlements moved south. The high towers found furthest south are at Yashinagari on the southern island of Kyushu. These high towers are also built to exacting specifications similar to those in the north. Within one of the recreated high towers at Yashinagari is this worship scene, constructed by a team of archaeologists. Although we can see that the Japanese people are very religious, there are still no answers. The next step in our journey to find information about worship in Japan is to learn from the Shinto religion, the oldest known religion in Japan. Izumo is one of the oldest and most revered Shinto shrines in Japan. The inner sanctuary of Izumo, although still raised up, used to be a high tower. This mural outside of Izumo Shrine shows an artist's conception of the former high tower inner shrine. At one time, this shrine was the tallest wooden structure in all of Japan at over 50 meters. The remains of the high tower are still visible today. The current inner shrine was built in the Edo period. One of the gods worshipped at Izumo is Amino Minakonushi. Preserved within the Izumo Museum is this scroll showing Amino Minakonushi at the top center. Amino Minakonushi means the God in the glorious center of heaven. Amino Minakonushi is flanked by the two other gods of creation. These three are separate from the other gods or kami of Japan, because they are spirit and not seen. Who is this god, Aminomi Nakanushi? Can we find evidence of him in the written records of the history of Japan? The oldest written document in Japan is called the Kojiki, the Records of Ancient Matters, written in 712. The Kojiki records in the first paragraph of the preface, "Now when chaos had begun to condense, but force and form were not yet manifest, and there was not name, not done, who could know its shape? Nevertheless, heaven and earth first parted, and the three deities performed the commencement of creation." The Bible says in Genesis 1 and 2, "In the beginning, Elohim," literally the gods, biblically this would mean the Trinity, "created the heavens and the earth. And the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. And the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters." Scientific evidence also confirms this beginning of creation. Dr. Stephen Hawking is heralded as the most brilliant theoretical physicist since Einstein. In his best-selling book, A Brief History of Time, From the Big Bang to Black Holes, he writes, "In 1929, Edwin Hubble made the landmark observation that wherever you look, distant galaxies are moving rapidly away from us. In other words, the universe is expanding. It became more and more clear that the universe must have had a beginning in time." Dr. Hawking states in his book, "It would be very difficult to explain why the universe should have begun in just this way, except as the act of a God who intended to create beings like us." The first paragraph of the Kojiki states, "The names of the deities that were born, literally that become, in the plane of high heaven, when the heaven and earth began, were the God in the glorious center of heaven, Aminomi Nakanushi. Next, the God of high generative power. Next, the God of divine generative power. These three deities were all deities born alone, not procreated, and hid their persons." The respected Japanese scholar Hirata Atsutani wrote the following about Aminomi Nakanushi. "We understand that he, Aminomi Nakanushi, has sovereignty over all the things in the universe. Since this great kami thus exists without a beginning, it is only appropriate that he be called the ultimate first deity, and that no words should possibly exist to describe the heights and depths of his virtuous power." It makes perfect sense that the Japanese people would have this revelation of God. The Bible says, "What may be known about God is plain to all men because God has made it plain to them. For since the creation of the world, God's invisible qualities, his eternal power and divine nature have been clearly seen, being understood from what has been made, so that men are without excuse."
This means that people can observe creation around them and know there must be a higher power that created these awesome wonders. My colleagues and I have researched cultures all over the world, and wherever we have looked long enough, we have found the name of a creator God.
Although knowledge of the God in the glorious center of heaven is vague, and he is an unknown God to most Japanese, there is overwhelming evidence of his existence. In Kyoto City is a shrine thought to be built around 500 AD called Taiko no Yashiro. Aminomi Nakanushi is also worshipped here. Next to the shrine is a spring with white stones placed over it, and a unique three-legged torii gate to the spring. The spring represents the center of the universe and the place where Aminomi Nakanushi dwells, and the three-legged gate, the gateway to the center of heaven. A stream and pond is formed by the spring. This signboard outside of the shrine says, "Within the precincts of this shrine is a holy pond called Moto Tarasu no Ike." Tarasu means to reform or to correct errors. The spring is where guilty people purify their body and soul in an act very similar to baptism. At the very top of Mount Kumpirusan, located just outside Kyoto, stands this monument with Aminomi Nakanushi, the god in the glorious center of heaven, at the top center.
Here we are in front of Musa Shrine. It's the most important of the over 40,000 Hachiman shrine. And this is really important to us in our search because in this shrine is a monument to Amino Nakanushi, the god in the center of heaven.
This reminds me of the unknown god at Athens that the Apostle Paul spoke of in Acts 17 of the Bible. Aminomi Nakanushi, however, is much more definite than the unknown god at Athens because he is not just one among hundreds of gods, but he is the first God, the uncreated creator, and the God at the very center of heaven.
The beginnings of the current sport of sumo wrestling are estimated to be about 2,000 years ago. One of the rituals of sumo is called Tegatana Okiru. It is said that the winning wrestler expresses his gratitude to the three gods of creation by making 3 swift hand movements representing Aminomi Nakanushi and the other 2 gods of creation. Looking at the evidence, it seems that the Japanese people have a historical name for the creator god, and that name is Aminomi Nakanushi, the god at the very center of heaven.
I have traveled to many of these different sites and shrines, and have seen and heard the evidence, and I am convinced that we have a name for God, and that name is Aminomi Nakanushi.
Could this Aminomi Nakanushi be the same creator god that the Bible also speaks of?
Several years ago, I came across the Aminomi Nakanushi name in the Kojiki for the first time. And in a message in seminary chapel, I used that and suggested that this is a name from olden times that express, it seems to me, the concept of the Christian God. This is not one of the myriad of gods, but it's the central God of heaven.
Is there other cultural and historical evidence of the creator god's legacy to the Japanese people? The Bible states, "From one man, God made every nation of men, that they should inhabit the whole earth, and he determined the time set for them, and the exact places where they should live." God did this so that men would seek him, and perhaps reach out for him and find him, though he is not far from each one of us. For in him we live and move and have our being, for we are his offspring.
If the Bible is true, and over the thousands of years of Japanese history and culture, God has been reaching out to the Japanese people, and the Japanese people have been reaching out for him, then surely there must be many things within the history and culture of Japan that reflect this relationship.